video to show you, and then we'll go to questions after that. So kind of 2 blocks available for questions. Mia will be handling all of those. So
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Rachel Santos just asking if there's slides for this.
Well, there are, of course. And when we've done our talk, we often get contacted by the organisers and we send everything through to them, and then it gets put in somewhere centrally. So as soon as we get the request, we'll send it over so that you have access to that when you're ready. It's nice that everybody's saying hello to each other as well. Do use the chat box to catch up with your pals. That's a good idea. Whilst the last few people are admitted to the room, perhaps I'll just start off by introducing the team. I'm Rachel Gillibrand. I'm Director of the Centre for Solution Focused Research. My background is in academia. I'm a psychologist who's now in private practice, and started this research quite a few years ago with Dorothea, who's in the audience, a long time ago. And then Mia and Adam became very interested in this, and so we've developed a team to develop the program further. So Adam, I think I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, my name is Adam Frower, and I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. And in this realm, I'm a senior researcher and been working with Rachel and Mia for a bit of time now. But in addition to that, then I work at the Solution Focused Universe with Elliot Connie. I'm the director of research and training there. So most of my life revolves around research.
And Mia.
Yeah, I'm Mia, Tony, and I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I'm a solution focused practitioner doing solution focused family work in high risk families in Denmark, and teaching social workers and other professionals in SF. So my background here is like found a huge interest in neuroscience, and then I met Adam and I met Rachel, and magic happened, and here we are. I got involved in this as a practitioner, not as an academic. So I'm adding that bit to the research. Yeah.
A hugely important part of our work, Mia.
Thank you.
So we will, like I say, do a little presentation for about 20-25 minutes or so. Then we'll go to questions. Then we're going to show a video of a solution-focused conversation with the EEG kit attached, and we'll see what happens in the brain when we work in that way. So let's get started. Okay. So here we are with it, I think the longest presentation title of the whole conference. So yay, us. We've got to work on that, guys. We've got to work on that. So here we are. I'm Rachel, like I say, director of the centre, Adam and Mia. And this presentation comes with input as well from Elliot Connie. So thank you, Elliot. What are our objectives for today? Well, we're going to explore problem solving and creativity. We're going to talk a little bit about the creative brain and what we call the Eureka moment. And as we go through that, we're going to be able to think about what that means for the work that we do in solution-focused practice. We'll then describe study 1, which we have talked about before in previous settings. And this will be an overview of what happens during solution-focused messaging in trance, and we'll have a little look at it, understanding what that looks like in the brain. And then taking that knowledge forward, we're going to describe study 2, which is the early stages of a randomized controlled trial, looking at what happens during solution-focused conversation. And as part of that, we're going to present for the first time ever preliminary findings on what we can see in Adam's brain today. So this is going to be fun. So why are we interested in creativity? Well, when I started this research, I was really interested in the way that solution-focused practice worked, how the questions we ask allows the person to really reflect and consider the stage of their life that they're in and where they want to be. And what I was interested in was, in contrast to other different therapeutic types, we don't necessarily directly kind of offer suggestions about the problem. In fact, we very rarely offer any suggestions at all. And so I was thinking, well, what is it that this technique of therapy does then? And as I went through it, I started to understand that what we're looking at doing is asking the person to come up with a new way of thinking about things, a new way of doing things in their lives that is something that they come up with themselves. And this hits on the idea of creativity. And creativity, as a definition, is the ability to generate ideas that are novel and useful. And the two components there matter. A creative thought has to have a purpose, so it has to solve something. In academic research, a creative thought also has to be novel, it has to be new. It can't be using something that we've done before to solve a problem now. So I was really interested in how our work might encourage the person to really think about things differently from that sense. And that takes us into idea generation. So the person has to generate ideas, and idea evaluation, which is looking into those ideas that have been generated to see whether they are new and whether they have a purpose. And in neuroscience, when we're looking at the brain, we can actually see that idea generation happen and the idea evaluation happen. Now, why is it that we can see this happening? These are quite complex tasks, and we can actually see in the brain a kind of map of activity showing that we're able to pick ideas and then evaluate them to see if they're right for the question. Now, we can do this process either through logic. So you could sit down with a particular problem and write a list of pros and cons for doing this and that to solve the problem. We can use logic to find a solution. Or we can use daydream and mind wandering. And when we're daydreaming and when our mind is wandering, our brain is actually incredibly busy. It's busier than you might expect compared to focusing on a problem. So whilst we're daydreaming, the brain is actually testing out this idea that it's come up with, and is it right for purpose? The ideas that we can generate, of course, can actually relate to pretty much anything, but within the context of the therapeutic environment, we're looking at ideas that can solve problems sort of by us, for us, or it can be about something else. So it could be about family, it can be about work, it can be pretty much anything at all. Now you notice on the slides, we've got a little number there at the top of the slide, a number 1, and that means that this information has come from a research paper. And at the end of the presentation, you'll see a list of research papers, and this information comes from research paper number 1. So what is the creative brain? What kind of brain is good at coming up with ideas and coming up with solutions? Within the brain, there are 5 main brain waves. You have alpha, beta, theta, delta, and gamma. Because scientists like to think that they're clever, we use Greek to annotate them. So, it simply means the order in which they were discovered. which is slightly annoying because it's not actually the order of size or anything like that, but it's the order in which they were discovered. What we know about the creative brain is that creative people show greater alpha wave activity. And alpha waves are really, really lovely. When we're talking to somebody about the problem, the thing that they've come to see us about, we might notice that they break eye contact as they think about the idea that they're coming up with, that they might not be able to look at you while you're asking the question. What's happening then is that they're turning their attention into themselves and away from you and producing lots of alpha waves. And that is them starting to literally visualize their way through the question and the answer. Now, the second thing that the creative brain produces is a lot of theta wave. And theta wave activity is really interesting. People who do a lot of yoga, meditation, hypnosis, for instance, produce a lot of theta. Artists produce a lot of theta. Theta waves increase during problem solving in the frontal area of the brain, and the frontal area is literally the front, your forehead area, but also the occipital area, which is the area at the back. So we might be seeing, when we look through our video, evidence of theta at the front of the brain, but also at the back. And what's really nice about that is that the back of the brain is also where alpha waves are produced. So if we get a lot of activity towards the back, we know that creative thought is on its way. What does it look like? We've got two brains on the picture here. The brain on the right-hand side has kind of like a map of vertical activity. This person is relying on tried and tested methods. So this person is not being particularly creative in solving the problem. The brain on the left there, you can see, is much more horizontal activity. This person is dipping into a huge pool of information, which kind of typically stored kind of over your left eye, looking for a new way of doing things. So we can actually see, with the person who's engaged in creative thought, a lot of activity from back to front. The person who's using the tried and tested methods is simply staying in the same area. What is Eureka? Eureka is, aha, I found the answer. And when we have the Eureka moment, we will see on the EEG a huge pulse of theta energy in the right frontal lobe. So somewhere kind of on the right, towards the front, between your eye and your ear, we're looking for a good spike of energy there. When we see that, we know that the person has found the answer. So let's start with the research. Study 1 was one that I conducted along with Dorothea, a few years ago now. This one was looking at creativity in trance. What we wanted to see was, could the person come up with the answers in their mind without having to speak them? A couple of reasons for that around the practicalities of this kind of research. When you see somebody talk, you'll see, when we have a look at Adam later, it does interfere with the recordings. Not too much, actually, a lot less than we thought it would. But for now, study 1 was people in trance who came up with the answers themselves without having to verbally speak them. So we had 9 participants, 2 of whom were male, aged between 18 and 65. And they received 4 sessions of solution-focused hypnotherapy. And we took EEG recordings in the last 2 sessions of the trance. Now, all of the participants received the same messages in trance. So we had a recorded message, a language pattern that we played for every single one of them. And this enabled us to control the statements that they received, and therefore it added some kind of consistency to experience for each of the participants. The data was then analysed by somebody who was not associated with the delivery of therapy and had no personal interest or gain in delivering analysis of the EEG data. And then a separate person conducted the data synthesis and interpretation. So they made sense of what we saw for us without actually having any involvement in the initial data collection and analysis. So we had somebody truly separate from the data so that we know that what they saw was what they saw. It wasn't influenced by what we wanted to see. So what did we find? Here are some two-dimensional images of the brain at rest. We've got 4 key brain waves here: alpha, beta, theta, and delta. Alpha is bottom left, beta is bottom right, theta is top right, delta is top left. What you can see whilst this person is just resting there is that we've got a nice amount of kind of activity in the alpha and theta brain waves. You can interpret these as if they are thermal images. So blue is cold, red is hot. So blue is less going on, red is more going on, and yellow, orange, and green all in between. So we can see that the alpha waves are really warm and lovely. This person's very relaxed, feeling very safe. Theta waves, again, looking really nice. They're in trance, so we would expect them to be producing a lot of theta at this stage. So very, very nice, happy brain that we've got there. Then we get them thinking. We get them thinking about the problem. And what you can see is we've got a lot of alpha there. And the alpha is really interesting because this is visualizing the problem. What does the problem look like to me? And you can see that the person is using a lot of activity in this front left area as they're digging around to kind of make sense of what is happening here. The rest of the brain is looking nice and relaxed and, just ticking along lovely. Then we start coming up with ways to solve the problem. And what we have here is an enormous amount of alpha waves. This brain is super hot, it's producing a lot of imagery. This person is now trying to work out, how can I fix the problem? How can I solve the thing that's on my mind right now? And if this was a live image, we would be seeing a lot of sort of to and fro between kind of the right and left hand side of the brain here. So we've got a lot of activity in this area, and it will be almost like a kind of table tennis ping pong match. We're going left, right, left, right, left, right. As the brain starts to produce answers, I wonder if this might work. And then on the right it goes, maybe. But what about this? Maybe not. And what about this? Maybe. And so the brain is ping-ponging between idea generation and idea evaluation. So we're seeing a lot of activity there. Really nice pattern, exactly what we want to see in somebody who's problem solving. What we're really interested in is the creativity angle. Is the person finding an idea that is both novel and useful? So we've got, is the idea new to me? Is it going to be the idea I need to solve the problem? And we're starting to see happiness over the right eye. We're starting to see, I think I've got it, activity here. The person is going, I think I've got the answer to my problem. How do we know? Because we know, we can see that they've now decided on the answer to their problem. And this huge amount of energy here on the right-hand side is the Eureka moment. We know that our person has found it, whatever it is, that's going to help them over the next few days. And we saw this pattern across all of the participants, all of the traces, and it was very, very exciting. So what does it mean? So we got an increase in alpha wave activity. Creative people show greater alpha wave activity. So we're seeing idea generation. Idea generation is what we want to happen with the questions and sentiments that we put across in solution-focused practice. There's an increase in theta wave activity. What does that mean? Creativity tasks produce an increase in theta wave activity. Theta waves increase in the frontal area of the brain. We've got idea evaluation. Now, if we have idea generation and idea evaluation, then we know that our person is working incredibly hard to solve the problem. And every single one of our participants delivered a spike of theta energy in the right frontal lobe. Eureka. They found the answer they were looking for. And so we thought, right, what do we need to do next? We need to get this data in people during a normal conversation, a solution-focused conversation. And so we set up a randomized control trial to do just this. And I'll hand over to Adam now to describe the process that happened next.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so this has been a long time dream of ours, and so to see it actually coming together is great. But what we have decided to do is to take this idea of creativity and say, is there a role or is there a place, can we observe creativity in the midst of solution-focused sessions? And you might be wondering, why do we care about creativity in solution-focused brief therapy? It doesn't, nowhere does it say you have to be a creative person in order for you to be able to engage in this kind of conversation. But we decided to base this research off of the diamond that Elliot and I kind of put together. And if you're not familiar with the diamond, we'll be talking about the diamond later. I was gonna say later this afternoon, but for most of you, it's already afternoon. At about, I think it's 5 o'clock Eastern time in the US. So whatever time that happens to be for you. But I'll just summarize really quickly here. One of the things that we discovered is that most solution-focused sessions have 3 components. There is this component where we get the desired outcome, what's the client's best hopes. Then the bulk of the session generally consists of getting a detailed description of that desired outcome. And we can do that in lots of ways. We can do that, and the diamond outlines 4. And so those 4 ways are what we decided to evaluate here in this study. So one is the history of the outcome, one is resource talk, one is scales, and then the 4th is the preferred future. And you'll see those written down in the slides later, and I'll quickly go over them. But what we decided to do is take each of those 4 different ways of describing and have Elliot, you can see here on this slide, he was the therapist, or he's going to be the therapist. We're in the midst of the data collection now. He'll be the therapist for all of these sessions. So for the first stage of this research, we're going to do 20 sessions, and we'll have 5 people have a session that's focused on each of those 4 pathways. So 5 people will talk predominantly about the history of the outcome, 5 people will talk about the preferred future, and so on throughout the 4 different types. So Elliot, as a very proficient clinician, he will be able to regulate how these sessions take place. My role in this part is to hook up the EEG headset, to collect the data, those kinds of things. So all of this data is being collected here in the United States for the moment. I'm sure at some point we'll move on to other regions of the world, but Elliot's here and I'm here. And so all of the participants also need to be here. Once we collect this EEG data, we then send it. We're partnering with some professors that you can see at the University of Gloucestershire in England. Neither of the, or actually there's three of them, none of these three individuals have a real familiarity with solution-focused brief therapy. They have a very basic general knowledge, but only because we told them about it. So their job is not to evaluate how well the solution-focused brief therapy is done, but instead their job is to look at the EEG data and to say, what are we seeing? And they're very familiar with EEG data. This is what they do predominantly. And so we're going to stay in our lane of solution focused and they're going to stay in their lane of EEG research, and we're going to let them tell us what it means. So we'll send them the data, and then just like Rachel outlined from the previous study, they'll be the ones to kind of then analyze that data and say, these are the patterns, these are the things that we're seeing across the different domains. Rachel is then the kind of the director of the research. She's the one that makes sure that it's all done well. So here you can see those 4 different paths. We're going to put in this first stage of research 5 people down each of those 4 paths. One of the things that's important to know is that unless Elliot watches this video, which I don't believe he's here now, he has no idea actually that we're looking at creativity. So don't tell him. And the reason that we've done that is because we don't want to sway him and try to come up with really creative questions or any of those kinds of things. So all he knows is that he's conducting solution-focused sessions like he usually conducts them. And hopefully that will then keep it as pure as possible. So I think that's good for that slide.
Thank you. So yes, if you do, let Elliot know what we're doing. He's a willing partner, but he's not to know what we're doing. So what we're going to look at is we have a recording of Elliot and Adam in a solution-focused conversation, which is focused on preferred future talk. So as we go through, I've put in some notes into the recordings so that I kind of explain what's happening and let you know what to look for. But for instance, you'll see that the brainwaves are different colours in the pictures that we're going to be looking at. Red and pink are your gamma and beta brainwaves, and they are predominantly shown on the left-hand side in this demonstration. And they're evidence of idea generation. So this is Adam poking around in his mind to try and find the answer to the question. He's poking around for ideas. We're going to look for idea evaluation. So we're hoping to see activity flicking between left-hand side and right-hand side. And then, of course, we're looking for creative thinking and creativity. So we're looking for lots of blue and purple, that's theta and alpha brainwaves, across both sides of the brain. And of course, we're looking for Eureka, looking for spikes of blue and purple activity on the right-hand side of the brain. So before we show the video, Mia, shall we go to questions if there's something there for us?
Well, the question so far has really been around hypnotherapy, and Dorothy has been a gem. She's been helping out. Thank you, Dorothy. Yeah, no, I've asked people to write in here if they have any questions. I think they've been answered already, and it's not related directly to what you're talking about here. So let's move on.
Okay.
The opportunity to write the questions down, and we'll take them after the video.
Okay, all right then. So let's have a little look at the video. So here we go, preferred future conversation. Now I will just let this play, but just to help you navigate around the screen, So we have a little picture of Adam there wearing his EEG kit. We are that nerdy. We do actually have our own EEG kits and we love them.
We do.
So he's wearing his own EEG kit, and you can see that there are two images here of his brain. On the left-hand side is what we call pure EEG. And so this is electrical trace being picked up from every single one of the electrodes that's attached to his head. That sounds gruesome. It's actually very fine. It's absolutely fine. And then the picture on the right is new software. So it's fancy 3D software for looking at Adam's brain. And the image will rotate and you will see different colors. You will be able to detect whether it's left brain or right brain as it works its way around. And you see the different colors here. At the moment, we have a lot of blue and purple. So the blue is theta and the purple is alpha. And then as he starts digging for, thoughts and ideas, then we're going to get a lot of pink, which is beta, and red, which is gamma. So let's see what happens.
I'm ready now.
What are your very best hopes from talking with me?
I want to feel good about myself.
If you woke up tomorrow feeling good about yourself in a way that just fit for how you want to feel, how would you notice?
I would I guess I would be confident that I could move through the day in a way that I wanted to.
What time would it be that you would wake up on a day like this?
Usually about between 5:30 and 6.
Okay, so if you woke up, at 5:30, 6 o'clock, what would your first clue be that you're waking up with this confidence?
I guess I would be optimistic about the day. Like I would have kind of a feeling that I would want to get things done and that I wouldn't get distracted.
How would you know that optimism was present?
I guess there would just be a clarity in my head and kind of a settled feeling.
How would you know that you have this settled feeling? Like, what would you notice that would be indicative of having this settled feeling?
I guess there wouldn't be like worry or hesitation about would I like I guess that's what I say. I would say there's just like a lack of worry or hesitation.
And what would there be instead as you thought about your day?
Purpose, I guess.
And when you're awake between 5:30 and 6, is there anybody around that's awake with you?
My wife is around, but she's not awake.
She's not awake. Okay. So what's the first thing you would do with this purpose and confidence being a part of your day?
Well, I would like to I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to do much different than what I'm already, that I usually do. I have a morning routine that involves reading and kind of meditating and praying and those kinds of things. So I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that to change. I think I would just go about that in the way that I usually do.
So how would you know that you were going about your normal routine in a way that fit for having purpose and confidence? Like, what would be different about the way you did your normal routine that just fit with that?
I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but I guess like I would do those things. I guess the easiest way for me to say it is I would do those things because I wanted to, rather than doing them to like just complete the check boxes.
And how would you know that you were doing them because you want to? Like, what would you notice about yourself that gave you the idea that you were doing them because you wanted to?
I guess there would be an eagerness. Yeah, I guess I would say there would be an eagerness to do them.
And what difference would it make for you to notice that you were doing your normal routine, like, you know, reading and other things, but doing it with a sense of eagerness?
You said what difference would it make?
Yes, sir.
I guess like it would bring a settled feeling. I would feel like I was in line with, yeah, I guess I would feel like I was in line with my purpose. I would feel settled, a settled feeling.
And what difference would it make for you to feel like you were in line with your purpose? And settled? Like, what difference would it make for you to feel those things?
It would be nice. I guess it would be confirmation. It would be confirmation that what I already know is happening in my life. I would want that to be the case. I feel like it should already be the case, and so it would just kind of be confirmation that it would work.
And who's the first person you would see? Like your wife, one of your children? Like, who's the first person you would see on the step?
Probably one of my children. So we all then later in the day, probably, well, not super late, but like around 6:30, we all get up and read together. And so usually one of my children is who I would see.
When you say we all get up, do you mean like the entire family reads together?
Yeah.
And how would your whole family know? How would your whole family know that they're reading with someone who's reading with a sense of purpose and settledness and eagerness? Like, how would your whole family know that?
I guess probably that I engaged with each one of them kind of in a meaningful way. I have 3 kids. They're all pretty different from each other. Two of the 3 early in the morning, they don't really want to have much to do with anyone. So I would respect that in some way, right? Like I would acknowledge that I was happy to respect that. Whereas I have another child who is all about like physical touch, wants to be close. And so I would also respect that in some way. I would probably try to make sure that in the midst of kind of family chaos, that there was also a time to like connect with my wife, to like meaningfully start the day with a connection with her.
And how would your wife know that like a really confident, settled, purposeful, eager version of you was trying to connect with her? Like how would your wife know that that kind of Adam was trying to connect with her?
I think she would feel the connection. I guess she would see me probably come up and give her a kiss, like, and she would feel kind of, I guess the only word that's coming to my mind is like peacefulness, right? She would experience my settledness, and it would kind of like bleed onto her.
Oh. And what would be a sign to you that your settledness has bled onto her? Like, what would you notice about her that would clue you into that?
Well, she's not a morning person. So this is not a time where like she enjoys being awake, and she so I think she would I think it would be in this is she would smile, we would make eye contact, and she would see, like, I guess I would see in her eyes kind of that, not just resolve to be awake, like, okay, I guess we're doing this, I'm awake, but kind of a gratitude to have this time.
And what difference would it make for you to have that?
It would be great. It'd be a really nice way to start the day.
How would you show her that you experience this as great and like a really nice way to start the day?
I would probably I'd probably just return that smile, and because we usually sit on opposite sides of the room, so it's easy for us to see each other and to make eye contact. So I think it would be conveyed through eye contact.
And what would she notice about that smile that would be a clue to her that this is a settled, confident, connected with me kind of a smile? Like, we're sitting here with our family reading as we typically do, but that's a bit of a different smile that I'm seeing. Like, what would she notice that would tell her that?
I guess just that it would be a genuine smile. You know, who wants to smile first thing in the morning? So I think it would be genuine. It would be, yeah, I think she would know. I think she would know because she knows me, and so she would know that she would see that genuine smile.
But what would she see to tell her it was genuine?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess she would she would see love in the smile, I guess.
And how would she notice love?
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. What would she see in the smile that would tell her there's love in that smile?
I don't know. I don't, just kindness, I guess.
And how would she see kindness in that smile?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would be connected to my eyes, I guess. My eyes would be light. My eyes would, so it's not just the smile, but the smile would kind of be connected to my face, that there would be, yeah, there would be lightness, I guess.
And how would you notice the same love and kindness in her smile? Like, what would you see that would tell you she's smiling back at me with love and kindness as well?
I think, I don't know if this is possible, but I think that, like, this, I wouldn't see sleepiness, that she would be like alert. She would be like, she would purposely be reciprocating that smile.
And what would you see in the smile that would tell you she was reciprocating it?
Softness, I guess. Like there would be a soft, yeah, like a soft, caring, I guess that's what.
What would it do to you to see this in her?
It would, I mean, it would make me feel good. It would make me feel really good inside. It would, but I think it would also make me feel connected to her. I guess the word that's coming to my mind is grateful. I would be grateful. I would kind of just take in for a minute, yes, like, here we are sitting with our 3 kids, this gratitude that we get to spend this time, grateful that this life together.
Can we pause there, Adam?
I guess, yes.
Total sad face, Adam, when you had to stop.
That's the only time my right brain actually started working, is when you were at that point. It was so quiet on that right side.
I wasn't going to mention it, Adam. They think this is normal. So, you know.
It's not normal. She just went through all of these things about highly creative people who have all this activity on the right side. I'm clearly not creative.
Oh, shucks. I think there was evidence, to be fair. There was evidence there of change for sure. I think, you know, looking at this, and we have a lot more data to collect, but this is what we're seeing so far. During Preferred Future Talk, we are seeing evidence of idea generation and idea evaluation. We're seeing loads of alpha and theta being produced as the person sort of searches and finds the answer. And I think what's really interesting here is that we can actually see in Adam's brain the answer arrive whilst he was saying, I don't know. His answer was there. It takes time to articulate. And so I kind of put a practice note in there to remind all of us not to jump in when the person says, I don't know, that we just wait, and just wait for them to be able to articulate the answer. The answer's there. They've heard the question. They just don't know how to yet turn it into words. And it does seem, even in Adam's incredibly left-sided brain, that the preferred future does seem to stimulate creativity. We do have moments of Eureka there. So
yeah, I think one of the things that I want to say about that too is that you notice when the right side, this is something I think that's coming up more and more, but when you see the right side of my brain activate, it is in the two places where we talked about before, kind of in the very front and in the very back. But in addition to that, that really did get activated when Elliot was asking me questions about the interaction between me and my wife, right? The connection that we would have. And I think emotion starts to come in those moments as well. And that's predominantly stored then on that right side of the brain as well. And so I think when we do things that are really purposeful about helping people to get to kind of this emotional place, then it helps them to then generate ideas that are new, that are novel. And you could really see that kind of kick in after he helped kind of build an entire scene. And I had to put myself in that scene and then imagine things playing out. And again, it's that point of imagination where I have to say, what would happen next? That then that right side really did kind of kick into play. And so I think there is message there for all of us that it's idea generation isn't just going to happen. It's something that we build and build and build. And then once we've kind of cultivated an environment, then idea generation and idea evaluation kind of flows much more easily.
Agreed. Yeah, I think this is absolutely fascinating. And you can probably tell that we're still thinking this through ourselves. We're still really excited by this and kind of what does this mean and what comes next with our work. But before we go to questions, I just want to say thank you for listening to us. Do get in touch. If you want copies of the notes or anything, just drop us an email at that email address there at the bottom of the page. And we'll be happy to send a copy of the notes there. We will upload the recording of this session as well, so you can watch it over and over and think about how we make sense of what we're seeing.
We have a few minutes for some questions. Would that be okay, Rachel and Adam?
Thank you.
Before we have to be a strict timekeeper. But Sabrina was asking quite a relevant question here. So what difference does it make to have this visual data now? What are your thoughts on this? What difference does that make?
I think I will summarize it in this way. Oftentimes when we look at research, we're looking at different types of research, and I'll put it into two camps. There's lots more camps than this, but I'll put it into process research versus outcome research. Outcome research is what we're probably most familiar with. Once somebody has a solution focused session, do they feel better? Do they experience more joy, right? So what impact did it have? Process research is what's happening in the session that then impacts those outcomes. And this fits very much into a process research kind of category. It's teaching us things that are helpful and things that are not helpful. So being able to look at this data could very much impact how we teach solution focused, how we formulate the questions that we're trying to ask. Because once we know that things are helpful, then we can do more of those things, which I think is what this model is founded on in the first place anyway. So the visual data helps us to know what's working.
Ursula is asking as well, are they comparable data for other approaches? Are you aware of this? Are there any?
Pretty new stuff. You know, we've been having a look. As far as we can tell, we're the only people doing this. So, you know, that's kind of cool. And there is EEG research out there, but looking at what's happening during a session, we haven't found it yet. So please, if you do find anything, let us know, because we'd be excited to know what other people are doing. But yeah, just really excited to be right at the forefront of this work.
We'll take the last one. And maybe you can answer this very quickly. You have to, because time is running out. But Daniel was asking, what's the difference in brain activity when thinking about problem solving and thinking about a problem or thinking about a solution? What's the difference in the activity in the brain when a client does that?
Typically, we'll see that if somebody is thinking about a problem, they're in the left-hand side of the brain. So they're thinking about what it means. They could be visualizing. We could see a lot of activity towards the back. So actually like walking themselves through the problem, seeing themselves through the problem, and perhaps playing it over and over, more towards the front. When we're looking for solutions, when we're trying to think about doing something differently, that's when we see this kind of activity at the front, ping pong, left, right, left, right, left, right. And that's the difference that I'm seeing right now. Adam, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think the only thing that I would say is just harken back to the video, right? Again, I think it goes back to that cultivating of, this was a hard session, I think, for Elliot, because I started by saying, I just want to do my regular things. I want my routine to be my routine, right? So I didn't have to evaluate. I didn't have to generate any new ideas because I knew what the routine was. And he had to work to get me to a place where all of a sudden the routine became unusual. And that's where the idea generation, that's where, like what Rachel's talking about, the thinking about solutions, thinking about new things, that's when it shifted over to the right side. And that's where kind of that ping-ponging happened quite a bit. And so I think when you think about problems, oftentimes it's from that very analytical place. What could I have done? How should I have handled this? If I could do it again, I would do it like this. What created that? And so it stays on that very left side. When I think about what do I need to do differently, I then have to ping back and forth and say, well, could I have done this? And what if I had done this? And what if, and so then you just in the way that we talk about it, you can hear that ping-ponging back and forth. And I think that you could see a bit of that in this session where I started very logical. This is my routine. This is what we do. And Elliot had to help move me to an unfamiliar place of, what do you see in your wife's eyes? And I'm like, I don't know. It's 6:30 in the morning. Leave me alone. And that's where it went then back and forth, right?
Thank you. We need to finish off here.
We do.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm really going to be excited to look through the chat. I can see there's lots and lots of comments there. To be able to follow some of those up as well. That's going to be really, really nice. And we're just so excited to see your excitement too. So hopefully we will come back next year with lots more. So Brina, you had so many amazing things to ask me there. Email me and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah. Oh my God, like my brain is perfect. Like, you want to see all of this ping pong thing.
Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. And
yes, thank you.
Enjoy SF24. And see you around.